Welcome, everybody, to Forgiven. This is a podcast that we are doing, and it's just our way of trying to reach out into our church and into our community to be able to help people along incrementally, just one little step at a time. And the focus that we have is to try and be as authentic and just as normal as we possibly can. Now, normal. I don't know how you really constitute what normal is, and we're kind of hoping that we will be as normal as we possibly can. But the hope that we have as a church community and as individuals is to be able to serve people and to bring people along. I think sometimes the thought is that we bring someone from a 10 out of 100 in Christianity to 30 out of 100 in one conversation. That doesn't happen. So what we want to do for those people who are listening and those people who are joining in, and those that are, as we're doing, we're going to do things a little bit uniquely. Come on in, folks.
Yeah, come and join us.
Is that we want to bring you along a little bit just by having some conversations. And today we are a little bit unique. We usually have one guest, but today we have around 17, we'll say.
Yeah. As many as we want, really.
Yeah. The thought is this. We're talking about online ministry and online outreach. And the funny thing is, if you think about evangelism and reaching people for Jesus, I remember there used to be like evangelists that would come to a church, there would be Billy Graham, and you would go to a crusade, or there was evangelism explosion, or there was bus ministry, or there was track ministry, and there are a number of things. And really, evangelism has evolved. But in reality, throughout all of that, the main way that you reach people for Jesus is that you talk to people. You had a friend and you told that friend about Jesus. And the statistics have remained that 90% of people who come to the Lord because they've had a close friend invite them out.
Feel like they know you.
Yeah. And so that has never changed, I think, since the beginning of the gospel message. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. And our world has changed drastically. And if you were at our seminar yesterday, we were talking about that. All the things that have talked that our world has changed. And so I don't think that things have changed a whole lot, other than the fact that we're not as good as evangelism because something has happened in the way we do things so that Christians no longer have friends that are in the unsaved world or unchristian world, or people who are trying to find out about Jesus, but they don't, because we don't have friends outside of our church. And so we kind of alienate ourselves. I was going to say annihilate ourselves. That's not really the right word.
No, it is not.
By alienating ourselves, we are annihilating our faith. There we go. Maybe I can get that in there. I'm not too sure. But what I'm basically saying is we try and figure out why am I not good at evangelism? Why am I not good at telling them about the most important thing in my life? Most important thing about me is that Jesus came and saved my sins and gave me life. How do I tell that to a world who desperately needs it? And so the thought is, it's very hard to do unless we have friends outside the church, unless we have associations at work and things like that, right? And so online ministry, taking that into the form of online ministry, if it is done right in terms of your church and as an individual, is a digital opportunity to create friendship. And so if your church is all about just promoting your church, then you lose out, because what we need to be doing on our websites and online is extending a hand of friendship, of the idea of hospitality. We have hospitality, that's how we get our friends. It is online hospitality. And really, I am not the expert in it. Yesterday I talked theoretically about why we do it, but the thing that may be most interesting for those of us who are joining us today is, so how does this look online? How do I as an individual reach friends online, and how do we as a church make friends online? And the person that we have at our church is Logan. So Logan, the question I have for you and for all of us here is, how do you effectively reach people online?
Well, first of all, just want to make it known you guys can ask questions and everything. That's why those mics are there. I just wanted to make that clear. They're not just like randomly picking up your voices. They're there for you guys to engage with us. But how do we reach people online? I have So at Bethel, we do a couple of things. First is we do this podcast, which is called Forgiven. It's on all audio platforms. So if you use Spotify, Apple, all that kind of stuff, you can find it there. We have a couple on YouTube as well, but we don't really. YouTube's one of those things that isn't the best for audio. So then we have to do video, and then guests don't like being on video, and so then you gotta look at us gargoyles, Pastor Mike, all the time, and nobody wants to do that. So
You said us gargoyles, and then you just mentioned my name,
yeah.
as though you're not a gargoyle.
No, I
as
said
well.
us. I said us.
Okay, very good.
I'm not just gonna insult you like that. But so yeah, we do this podcast, and we also put out our regular Sunday sermons as a podcast as well. That way, if people miss the message, they can still watch it and listen to it at their own leisure. And same with this podcast. But we also do a couple of other projects, and one of them's on hiatus right now, just with some of my time having to shift around. But it's this short little series that I called The Pick Me Up. And it's a 2 to 5 minute devotional on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, like all of the little platforms. And basically, think about it. It's Wednesday, Thursday afternoon. You're sitting in your job. That's like the most grueling hours of the week, at least for me, is like Wednesday and Thursday afternoon, because Friday's coming, the weekend, you're looking forward to it. And it seems like time just slows down in those areas. And when I was in Bible college, we used to have modules, which is a whole class in a week. They're terrible. But in the afternoon, they'd give you a break. And Wednesday, Thursday, me and my buddies would go to Tim's. We would run across the street and go to Tim's and get that pick-me-up. We'd get like a triple espresso just to like stay awake. And that's what inspired me to talk about it, or to make this little series and things that we're doing. And so it's just a 5-minute devotional message that you can watch on your break, on your phone, whatever. And it's just something short and sweet. I did one on prayer, one on silence, just a general encouragement, perseverance. Like, you can just take any sort of theme in the Bible and just talk about it. And the great thing is, even if somebody isn't a Christian, they might stumble across your one on perseverance or their encouragement, and then that might lead them to the next one and the next one. And the same thing goes with the podcast. So some of the things that we do with Forgiven is we tailor it to new Christians, either just on the cusp of becoming a Christian, right? They're asking questions, they're looking to go to church, or they're just brand new. And the reason we do that is because even if you're a super mature Christian, you can still glean and learn something from something at a beginner level. But obviously, if you're a beginner, you're not going to be able to relate and learn from something at a super mature level. So we aim for the middle, and we get both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. So the idea then, and the purpose for some of the things you were talking about, the little pick-me-ups and things like that, it is for church people, and it is for our congregation.
Yeah.
But if someone is actually looking for something that is bringing them life, and they're at a point of faith, and they're trying to figure out, hey, what is this all about? Chances are they won't take a look at your church stuff. They are going to be looking at, how can I answer some of the questions for my life right now? And they will be more apt to listen to a pick-me-up, which is 3 minutes, that will cause them to minister. And the chances are, if people who don't normally go to church are coming to your website, it is because the Holy Spirit has been talking to them already. Like we mentioned yesterday.
Evangelism.
Evangelism is joining a conversation that the Holy Spirit is already having with someone.
Yeah.
And so we kind of help them along. And so we came to the conclusion that if all we did on a website or online had to do with promoting our church, then we were missing out on the idea of actually reaching people at a time where it is very hard to reach people. So Logan, you have a number of things that you're doing, and I know that there are a number of people who are kind of here that are saying, can I ask a question? At any time, come on up to the mic. You are our guest. If you're listening online and you're wanting to ask a question, we can certainly get back to you. And if you are interested online and you're listening to this, please feel free to give us a shout or send us an email to
forgiven@bethelbrandon.ca.
So I thought I'd hand it over to you,
Yeah.
and I will interject and interfere, probably maybe a better word for us. And I know that a lot of people are interested in hearing what you have to say, because you've gained a lot of information over the years you have been in ministry. So.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to cover is why. Why are we doing this? And Pastor Mike talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I want to talk about the why and the core values and questions that I ask myself every time I post something. I have handouts. Some of you may have them from yesterday. I will hand them out after. But the 3 core questions and values you always have to remember is, why are you doing online ministry? If you are only doing it because you had to and were forced to because of COVID, that's not a good why. Right? People will recognize that. Millennials and Gen Zs are some of the most quick at intaking information, and they are very quick to read people, and they will know if something is fake, false, phony, if you're only doing it because it's a habit. They don't want that. They've been so force-fed advertising and so many things to like try to just grasp their attention. It's a war for attention that if you're just doing it to do it, they're going to turn away. So you need to ask yourself the why. And I think the why is really simple, because never has there been a time in the church's history that we have the most amazing utility or tool to utilize to reaching people for the gospel. There are 7.91 billion people in the world as of 2022. Then you break that down, 5.31 billion of those people have a cell phone. And then of those 5.31 billion people, 97.12% are smartphones with apps, social media, and internet access. So basically, 97% of the population that has a cell phone is using smartphone, is a smartphone that is using social media and online and has internet connectivity. To me, that's all the why I need, realistically, because we're always trying to bring the most people in to know who Jesus is. That's our big goal, helping people find and follow Jesus. So that's my why. I can cast the widest net possible now.
And plus the fact that as we consider this, when you have online ministry, you're open 24/7.
Yes.
You're not only operating in a church that is open so many hours and ministering at certain times. We have access to people, and people have access to our information. And a sermon that you preach or something that you preach it one Sunday, and maybe you'll buy a tape. But when it's on the internet, and when you're filing those things away and making them available, a sermon or a message that you have given or an encouragement that you have given is on there for long periods of time, right?
Well, it's on there forever.
Forever.
And one thing I'll say, truthfully, hosting a low quality / mediocre live stream or video is actually more harmful than doing nothing at all.
Why is that?
Think about it this way. During COVID especially, right, because we're coming out of a post-pandemic world, everybody had access to every church they ever wanted to, right? And so I remember doing this. I'm sitting at home on YouTube, and I pulled up 4 or 5 different churches, and I just watched, and then eventually I would pick one that I would watch because it had the best quality, right? And whether that was the best sound, best video cameras, and my story's a little bit different because I'm a nerd, so I look at the cameras and everything like that. But I think the fact still remains, if you're not putting at least a little bit of effort into it, people will see that and they're like, well, this isn't worth my time because they don't care about it. That's more what I mean. You have to be willing to put in quality efforts into what you're doing. So one of the things that I honestly battled when I first started at Bethel was I got to post. Like every day something has to come out because you always hear this. Consistency is key. Consistency is key. Don't get me wrong. Consistency is really important. But quality over quantity is always way more important. Always way more important. So for me, I've noticed that the things that I did rush to put out just to put something out I'll just be honest, 75% less traction than the stuff that I would have waited, a day or two to like spend more time on, pray about, maybe add some scripture to it, or like whatever piece of content I'm trying to create. Because people recognize fake. And if you're just doing it to garner their attention, you're not giving them anything, you haven't earned their trust. You haven't earned anything from them. They start to feel like a customer.
So can I ask a question at this point? I don't want to take you away from your rant. I shouldn't say rant. It is. you've already said you're a gargoyle and now a nerd.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But anyways, so I've always found that there's so much information out there, and that you want to promote youth, you're wanting to promote seniors, you're wanting to somehow let your community know. And there's so many ways that we're doing that, almost like I have here so many announcements, and I have so many ways that I'm like, I get the information overload. You know, I don't even read all of my emails. You know, then you have on Instagram, and then you have Facebook posts, and then you have all these things that are being shared. How do you differentiate, and how do you organize things where you say, this is kind of a church thing, this is something that we do for church people, but it's also for somebody who's really seeking? Do you kind of have a system as to how you do that?
I want everybody to say this with me, though. Your social media and online presence is not your church bulletin board. Okay? Remember that. Okay? Your social media, your online presence is not just another church bulletin board. Okay? Right? We've all seen it in the churches. They have the bulletin board with 400 different things pinned up, and everything's pinned up over top of it, and you can't read anything, and you don't know what you're looking at. If your social media is like that, immediate turn off. Nobody's going to look at that.
So that would be the prime.
That's number one.
The primary sin of online ministry.
Yes.
Or the
yes. That is the cardinal rule. Do not do that.
Cardinal sin.
And so then the one rule then that I have at Bethel, and it might not work for you guys, right? Contexts are different, but the thing that we do is, if I do a community-related post, i.e. inviting somebody to an event, reminding our church goers of an event or whatever, the next post has to be something encouraging. It has to be either a sermon clip, a piece of scripture, something that actually gives them something to chew on and to think about.
Are sermon clips effective?
Yes, that is our most effective form of reaching people.
So if I'm just kind of a person examining your website, and again, the website is the new foyer for us. They will visit you online before they visit you in person.
Yeah.
And so one of the most effective things is for most, especially the younger generation, their attention span is very, very small. If all of a sudden they just get a bit of a clip, then that kind of feeds them and kind of piques the interest.
And you want to, and the other thing is, Pastor Mike, you're right. The church is the new foyer, but I would actually take it another step further and say, it's not even your website anymore. People aren't going to your website first. They're looking you up on Facebook first. They're looking you up on Instagram first. And then if they like what they see, then they'll check out your website. Then they might come in person. They might send you an email. And so just keep that in mind. And speaking of church websites, okay, make sure they're updated. Make sure the information is up to date as it can be. And I understand that's hard if you're, maybe a one-person staff or something like that. I understand that can be challenging, but do your best, because there's nothing more infuriating than if, as a new person, you're trying to find a church and you have the wrong service time, or, you're hosting an event and you cancel it, but you don't tell the online community, so then they show up. It shows that you don't care. We had a young adult, Benjamin Paddock. He was working in BC, and, he's a good church kid, and he was looking for a young adults program while he was out there. He wanted to just go and have fun. So he looks up a church. It's like half an hour away from him. He has to walk, whatever, because he's only visiting. Walks there. Event's not on. Nothing posted. Doesn't know what's going on. Knocks on the door. Nothing. And then he has to spend another hour, half an hour walking back. And the kid just wasted an hour and 20 minutes of his life trying to, go to a young adults program. And, I just think about that. And it saddens me, because it's I think how many other churches are like that, with people showing up on a Sunday, or how many people are trying to whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. You need to keep your website up to date. That's and it can be your website doesn't have to be complex. It can be really simple. Actually, sometimes simplicity is better, depending on the context you're trying to hit. So
there's nothing worse than trying to go and find something, you can't find it because there's so many other things on there to distract you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I mentioned that the first core value I mentioned was why, right? You have to keep yourself, you always have to ask yourself why. So then the second one is, what is your post saying about your church? Okay, so at Bethel, right, I post after every event. I'm the one going around and I take a bunch of pictures, video, and I usually make like a little highlight reel. And then I post that. And I don't post that to brag about the event or anything like that. I'm trying to do that to show them that, like, look, like, we have fun. This is like our, and I try to take pictures of every single generation to show that, like,
Is it sort of a thing that causes people to look at it and say, this is what you're missing?
yes.
Type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even, and sometimes people miss for legitimate reasons, right? So sometimes it's to feel like they're part of something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's also a marketing technique to be like, oh, that looked really fun. Maybe I'll go to the next one. But think about what sermon clip you're using. What does that say about the theology of your church, even? Your core values, right? Bethel Brandon's whole, like, part of our mission statement is in the community for the community. So I make sure that when we do community-related things, that's always at the top. Because if that's our goal, that's part of our core value, that needs to be shown through. So keep that in mind. And then, like I said, the last one is always quality over quantity. Always spend time making something that you pour your heart and soul into, and then put it out. Don't just try to knock out 10 videos in one day or like whatever.
So
That's
you're
just
better
not
off
gonna work.
doing one thing well than 10 things,
Yeah.
or just make it work at the pace, but whatever you do,
Yes.
do it. And now this doesn't have to be expensive.
No, you can do it for free. Social media is free. The only thing you need to pay for is an internet connection. And even then, you don't have to do that. You can go to Starbucks. Like, it's like, no, like, realistically, it is free. The only thing you need is like a cell phone, I guess. So whatever that cost is. But I think everybody in here probably has a cell phone on it with social media on it, right? I think we can all agree.
For the most part.
So it's free. This obviously, we at Bethel Brandon have invested into our podcasting equipment, and we have cameras and stuff like that. But that didn't just happen overnight. That's been 3 years of us, like, slowly investing and building up our repertoire of equipment and everything like that. But this podcast started with literally, like, I went to our back music room and I just cobbled together, like, old mic cables that nobody was using and old microphones and stuff like that. And I found this old digital recorder, and that's what we used. And then it slowly, like, the board recognized that this was important, and we slowly grew it into sort of like what it is today. But you can do it for free. Just start doing it. Honestly, that is like the biggest hurdle, right? Because it's awkward. It is a little awkward when you're trying to post a video of yourself or of your sermon or like whatever. It doesn't matter. Just put something out there.
So this is, for some people, this is old hat. For some of us here, this is kind of generating a few ideas. And I would imagine as we're looking out there, some people who are doing things that are probably a lot better than what we're doing. A number who are here who maybe you're part of your church outreach team, or maybe you're part of the tech team, and you're just trying to do some creative things. And so if you're here and you're doing something creative, take the opportunity. We have a couple of mics here, so you are actually the guest on the show today. And so while we are talking, if there's something that is on your heart that you want to ask Logan, or maybe there's something that you are doing that is successful and you want to share with us, that would be great. And so you're not only talking to us, you're talking to a number of people throughout our community, but it's amazing how easily things get into outside of our own arms. That's kind of the wonderful thing about the internet. Now, is there anything that you have seen that has been really, really creative? Like, I know we had a high school student that is now in Bible college that wanted to do online gaming, just to be able to do groups of games. And then from that, he would start the conversation up, and there would be people who would really start to engage over something that was just a natural or a common interest amongst people. And so I thought, it took us a little bit of time, and it never really got off the ground like we wanted it to, but it was just something that we thought we would try. Some things you'll try, you'll fail. You got to, I think that we just have to learn to fail forward, do things, and if they fail, then that is just one way that we've realized not to do it, or we just do it a little bit different. We're at a point in a stage where we're all trying to figure out what's the best way that we can reach, what's the most creative way that we can reach people, because because other people who are not churches and that are doing it and doing it very well, right? So anyways, I just thought I would invite anyone who has a question, just come on up to the mic and we will allow and try and answer your question, or maybe you have a comment or something that you're doing well and you can report that so that other people might know how to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So.
I mean, yeah, you have a
Come on up
question?
to the
Yeah,
mic,
just come up. You don't need to raise your hand. We're not in school. I think we can be nice, calm
So
adults.
tell us what your name is and just make your comment.
Speak
or
real
ask your
close
question.
into one of them.
Oh, yeah. I'm Pastor Jerome from International Worship Center
Hey, Jerome.
here in Winnipeg. And we have other sites as well in Brandon, Nipoa, and here in the city. One of the things, like what you said, definitely the pandemic really changed the landscape of how we do ministry. And I know online ministry, at first, it was very daunting for everyone who didn't do it before the pandemic,
Yes.
right? There's some people who were really prepared. They were doing it already. So once the lockdown and everything, it was just
Easy
a walk in the
transition.
park, right? It was an easy transition. But for a lot of us, it was a lot of experimentation, right, so to speak, and just trying out like a lot of crazy ideas.
Sure.
And most of the great ideas actually came from those kind of things. One of the things that we really looked into was kids ministry. It was hard because the preaching is there, but how are we going to be ministering to kids?
Yes.
So those were like some of the questions that we have. Once the church actually figured out they have to change my role from being a youth pastor now to become a digital content pastor. So they saw that there was a need for that. I remember what we did. We just grabbed, we thought, like, maybe we can just, how can we get the message out there to kids? So we were using this material, this free material from Open Life Network.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's a free material from there. There's videos, there's curriculum. And so, but how are we going to make it more personal and more easier?
Yep.
Right? So what we did is we took a green screen, in there. We had like a camera there. And then we recorded some of our youth leaders, youth teachers, and they started like having an introduction, a more personal introduction to the lesson, but connecting the audience, the kids that we have that knows the teachers from before, to learn into that new system.
Nice.
Right? So I remember first time in 2021, we had our first online vacation Bible school.
Wow.
So for a week, everything was shown every 6:30 p.m. So it's all video that we shot from like different locations because we have like a theme. Is I think anchored.
Okay.
Right. And so we went to Selkirk, Manitoba, and there were like a lot of like the museum there with the boats and everything.
Yeah.
So we kind of like use that as a backdrop. It's outside, so we can shoot because there was no restriction if it's outside. So just being creative, it's free anyway. We just shot and we just invested in some location shoot. We're just bringing some of the volunteers there. Yeah. And we have some our Rode microphones.
Yeah, well, that's what we use at home.
And that's been our one of the main equipment that we had. But just starting from those crazy ideas we have, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us have different challenges. But talking to a lot of young people, the thing that you mentioned about the gaming thing in Discord.
Yes.
We did that actually.
Yep.
There are some leaders who are playing, but it's just a little hard to monitor. Yeah. That's the only thing. And what time of day they're doing it because it's mostly like around midnight and wee hours in the morning. It can really go out of control.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like hit and miss. We did actually stop that for the moment. But yeah, it's a continuous learning, and then just maybe sharing some of the things that we've learned, and then sharing other practices is actually really great.
I can't believe you guys did a whole VBS online. Like that's crazy. I don't know many people that actually like did that. Like congrats. Like that. Yeah. Making kids videos for me was the hardest during the pandemic because it's like you want to be so animated and have fun and like like I run around and give high fives when I'm teaching kids and stuff like that. Like I like to get them involved. And so like you can't translate that well through like
Online,
through
yeah.
a screen, right? So yeah, like props to you guys. That's really cool. And one of the things that I wanted to just briefly mention, the church, we need to humble ourselves a little bit in some regards and recognize that, like Pastor Mike and I said, we're no experts in this by any stretch of the imagination. But let's be real. There are a lot of things and good examples in popular culture that we actually could be learning from.
Yeah.
Right? Just for some reason, I think the capital C church has this idea. It's like, oh, they're not Christian. I can't use what they're using. It's unholy. What? Not at all. We could totally use that as long as you take that and, you know, you pray about it and you recognize its core value and you attach it along with what you believe. There's a lot we can learn from the people who are actually experts in this area.
Yeah, there's some people who have websites, and the way they do it, it's not so much the content that they have, but how the method that they use to keep you. We can learn a lot from some of the people who are in that, who are YouTube specialists,
Yeah.
or in whatever ways. There's an excellence that they have, and I think that they have done is because they have learned by not doing it well.
Yes,
We learn to do things well by not doing it well and figuring it out, right?
I chose in my notes, and I do want to touch on this because I think it's actually really a good example. Who's ever heard of Mr. Beast? Who's ever watched like YouTube? Okay. Yeah. So so he is the world's most popular YouTuber by far, without a doubt. And like ask anybody under the age of 18, and they definitely will like rave about him. They won't stop talking about him. And the reason he's like so popular isn't because he like does like grotesque gaming or he does like anything like bad. He just does like super crazy, ridiculous ideas that like that you couldn't even fathom. So one of his like most famous videos is he bought a private jet and he had all of his friends lay a hand on it, and the last person touching the jet won it. Now, I'm not saying the church needs to go out and do something crazy like that, but it's still the fact still remains that a crazy idea like that like brings people in.
What would we have to be able to do it? Some type of spiritual thing.
I don't have the answer for
We
that.
have a Gutenberg Bible or something, and everyone has their hand on it. The last one who,
I'm not sure.
I'm not too sure.
But
Well, anyways,
we don't have to do a last to leave or take your hand off. But I use him as a case example because everything that he does follows our same core values that I laid out before. So his ultimate why, and he talks about this all the time, his ultimate why is he wants to make the most entertaining YouTube video, right? And hear me when I say that YouTube video, right? Because YouTube has a very different way of making a video than you would for like TV or for your own website. So that's his why. And then he cares so much about what his video conveys that like he will spend millions of dollars on a single video. And if at the end of the whole process, after it gets edited and filmed and everything like that, if he doesn't like it, he just deletes it.
well,
Right? Because for him, he wants to make sure that his brand, his marketing, his core values are being translated through well. And then that leads into the last core value of ultimate quality over quantity, right? The guy puts out one video every like 3 months or something like that. But in the first like 24 hours, it gets like 100 million views. Like, what? That's insane. And I'm not saying the church needs to go and be like Mr. Beast and start running around and doing all the crazy challenges, but just the fact that we can model ourselves after his, like, the core values that he represents. And there's a lot of other people on YouTube and Facebook and all these things that we could be taking lessons from.
yeah.
So just don't close yourself off.
Although we have done some crazy things.
We have.
Like this last summer, we did the city's biggest water fight.
Yes, we did Brandon's biggest water fight. Yep.
And so we just invited the community to do the water fight. We had a farmer who had a great big container
Took
of
his sprayer
water,
truck and
and we had stations set up, and we just invited the community for a water fight. And we went to a dollar store or whatever where they
Yep.
had those big super soakers, and everybody had a super soaker, and the kids had a great time, and they had something for the small kids, and so what we did is we just utilized whatever social media and whatever public social media that we possibly could, and it was just something to say, hey, we're just going to try and do something to create fun for families in the community. And that's kind of, I think it's going to end up being a normal staple for us.
Oh,
for
I've
something to
already
do in
started
the
planning
community.
round 2.
I think we all have creative ideas, and I'm hoping that we can help in that whole process.
Yeah.
You know, the Easter egg hunt, we're doing this Easter, same thing for the community. We're telling the church this is for your friends, it's not for you. And we have them. We do the Easter egg hunt. We have special eggs that we're going to have, and we give them a hot dog right after the Easter egg hunt, and we just say to them, we're glad that you're here. If you never ever come into our church again, it's okay. If you're here from another faith background or anything, we don't care. We just want to be here. Our mandate as Christians is to love you and care for you no matter what, whether you ever come, whether you ever sit there and choose faith with our church or whatever. Case, it doesn't matter to us.
Yeah.
And so what happens is it starts the conversation, and it builds trust after you do it for 5 or 6 years, because our community does not trust us, really. And maybe we haven't had a good track record in the past. I'm not too sure. I haven't gone through the history of the church or anything. But it takes 5 or 6 times for a community person to say, actually, there is no string attached, right? And so, again, the idea is to create friendship. And we have a special opportunity to be able to do it online. And if you can, why wouldn't you want to? And so you'll find that there will be people in heaven because of our efforts to reach them, and there'll be people that you will reach out of your circle to be able to do that.
And speaking of Brandon's biggest water fight, just as like a little side note, I didn't plan on talking about this, but I think it's valuable. I said social media is free, and it is. It is completely free. You do not have to pay a cent to use social media, and you can maximize it to its potential without paying a dime. But you actually can pay a pretty small amount of money for a maximum amount of advertising on social media. So for Brandon's biggest water fight, since it was such a new idea, and I was brand new at the church when I came up with this idea. I was a week in, and I came to you and was like, hey, I want to do this big giant thing. And you're like, okay. Obviously, I don't think they had a ton of faith in me because I didn't have a big budget or anything like that, but we made it work. And I spent $20 on one cycle of a 30-day Facebook ad. It was $20.
The best ideas that we have are not the most expensive ideas that we have. That's the funny thing about it.
And that $20 Facebook ad, I think, had 12,000 impressions on the end of the 30 days. Now, Facebook measures an impression as somebody who clicks on the clicks on the ad. So we had 12,000 people in the radius of Brandon click on this thing, and then obviously I think most of our staff shared it personally, and we talked about it a lot. But also, I just emailed the local radio station and was like, hey, we're doing this event. I don't know how much it costs to advertise or anything like that, but if you have anything we'd love to work with you. And they were like, yeah, we'll rotate it for a couple days for free. So then the local radio station just partnered with us basically and put it on the radio for free. And I honestly was like, I don't think that many people are gonna listen. I don't listen to the radio anymore. I don't. I'm sorry. I listen to podcasts. All my music is on demand. But a shocking amount of people listened to it, and every person that I talked to during the event was I was like, hey, how'd you hear about this? I heard about it on the radio. So many people heard about it on the radio, and so I say that to be if you are throwing a huge event and you do have the means and stuff like that to budget something like that, I highly suggest you do. Because it is easily one of the most get a little businessy. It's the best return on investment you can have.
Okay, so in terms of those, we want to do things through radio advertisement and things. Is there a value in training or teaching the people who are part of your core to share things?
Yes.
Because I have a group of friends that are not part of your group of friends. Right, and so if I share something, then we almost exponentially increase the idea of something which is taking place. If you have a congregation and most of them usually are older, they just don't share things. well, I'm here to look at it, but I'm not there to share. But sharing becomes an important part if you can train the people in your congregation to say, listen, just press the share button, and everyone around you will know about it. So, anyways, great. Greg Wood is here. Glad to have you, Greg. You have any other comment or question or encouragement for us?
On Facebook,
Yeah.
if you get them to share, it also takes your post and puts it out. The algorithms in Facebook say, oh, people are interested in this. People love this. By the way, liking means nothing compared to loving in the algorithms, because you have to actually do the extra. You can't just click. You have to do the extra thing and go up and over, and the algorithms love that.
Yes.
But so when they're sharing it, they're actually pushing your post out, because it'll go to like 8 people. And then those 8 people share it, and there's, oh, these people are interested, and then it pushes it out to 30 more.
Exactly.
So there's a real, you can really generate by having that. And if you've got friends that'll do that, that's great. I'll start sending them my posts. So.
Yes, great.
And so, and actually, a perfect example of this, it just happened within this week. So I'm also a youth pastor, but since youth is on Friday, but I had to be here, so I left my youth leaders in charge. Don't worry, the church didn't burn down. Everything's fine. But they were doing lip sync battle, and lip sync battle apparently has like a deep rooted history in Bethel youth. And so like, I didn't even ask them to do this. They just did it. A bunch of them got together and made a little promo video and shared it. And they had like 6 years worth of footage, and they put it all together. And we only shared it on Instagram. And then one of the leaders was like, hey, everybody like add it to your story so that people, can see it more than once. And I kind of like, I wasn't there obviously, but I asked some of the leaders, and they're like, yeah, it was the biggest turnout we've had since like we started back in the new year and stuff like that. And maybe it's because it's just lip sync battle and people really like that. But part of me also thinks we just maximized the amount of like views that this little thing had. I checked. I posted it Wednesday afternoon. I checked Thursday morning, and it had like 300 views in like 24 hours. That has never happened on any of the youth posts or anything that I have made. But for some reason, because of the quality of the video and people sharing it and everything like that, it's just like Greg said, it pushes it to the top.
Nice.
So I really suggest you start training your church volunteers and even just your congregants to share.
Excellent. So now, if you have a question, please don't be shy and have a couple of things as mentioned. But there certainly are a few things. Again, Greg, thanks for helping us out.
I have a question.
Okay,
This time a question. Have you done anything in the realm of going live to YouTube, going live to whatever, like Facebook, wherever you want to go? Have you done anything in that kind of a realm, or even in a webinar, Zoom, so that the conversation can start? Because when I just post content, people will come and look at it, but when we're interacting, then I can get more conversation. That's with my coaching and public speaking area of my life. I don't mean that that's happening from a church standpoint.
Yeah.
But there's far more interaction when we're doing stuff live. And just wondering if you have any experience in that.
We are at the front gate of doing that, and Logan, you can kind of show where your heart is in that.
So obviously we live stream our services. I think pretty much all of us probably live stream or pre-record and put up your service. So we do that. And that is something I have slated for 2023, is to do more sort of, I'll say, spontaneous live events and stuff like that. The challenge is you want to do them in the evening when people are at home and can participate and stuff. And so it's just like our building is always super full every day of the week. So it's just trying to find a time that works to do that. That's all. So it's kind of it is something that we want to do. Like this right now, this live podcast, live only in the sense that we have an audience. I want to start doing them live on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. Yeah. Because then I can just leave the live video up after, and I don't have to edit it, and I can just leave it up on YouTube, and I can just take the audio and put it on the podcast platforms after. But it actually allows people to ask questions and actually engage with us. So great question. It is something we're planning on doing.
So how will that look like? So we're going to make the announcement in our church that we're going to do a live podcast so that we can invite anyone that we can and have them invite as many people as they can. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do it. and it might flop, or it might be a huge success. And so from there, we say, well, that didn't work so well. Are we going to do it again? Well, it just was such a failure, or I should say such a failure. It didn't work so well, then we're going to try and redirect another avenue as to how to do it. Or we'll say, we made a lot of mistakes, but the potential of that is there to do it. And so what we'll do is we will tweak it, and allow it to evolve. But to do nothing is probably the worst thing that you can do. Just don't ever be discouraged at trying to do things, especially in this is kind of almost like a Wild West in some respects. Is that we're just trying to figure out ways to do it, and the thing is, you just learn, and hopefully you can learn from our mistakes as well, or we can learn from your mistakes, because this is about the kingdom of God, trying to figure out whatever ways that we can creatively minister. Now, one thing that I wanted to maybe add as we got talking about this is there are events that we have that are church and community. The church gets involved in it, and we invite the community. And so the water fight was kind of a church and community.
Yeah, it was a community event we invited the church to.
And the church core helps with that community, but we don't want it to be, if all of a sudden you have a church and community event and only your church shows up, then there's a problem. And that has happened before. But there are other activities that are purely community. Like we realized that there was not enough daycare or babysitting, or I don't even know how childcare during professional development days. There were a couple that were happening in our community, but not enough to supply the need. And so what we said is, we're going to do a childcare, and we aren't going to kind of put it under a church guise. It's going to be held at the church, and it's going to be a church-run event, but it is not going to be a Christianized event. It's just going to be a daycare. And we had someone in the church to do it because we just wanted to care for the community. And so it wasn't really a church event at all. It was just a pure community event. And first time we did it, we had 3 people out. Then the second time we did it, we had 6. And the third time we did it, we had 20.
I think 22 is the final number.
22. And so of that 22, there was two people that were from our church. The other ones are just community people who don't come out. And what happened was, there's a few things that I would like for you to get into, Logan, as we talk about this, because we figured things out. What we realized is, if non-church people, you can gain their trust, they will tell everybody. Yeah. And all of a sudden you have a growth which is exponential. Hey, this is safe. They're not trying to proselytize my children, but it is something which is good, and they're not making a profit on it at all. We're running it cheaper than other people because we don't need it. This is our service to the community. And so did the way we push that, and was it any different than any other time? Now we found that there were certain ways that the community were able to access information that was different than perhaps in a church level. Is that correct?
Yeah. So again, we did the first time. We didn't run any like advertising or anything like that. We just posted it, and we just encouraged people to share it. Didn't work out so well. Right? Mostly our people shared it, but a lot of our congregants are just friends with other Christians. So I just kind of realized it's a little more secluded. So I was like, I got to figure out a way to break out of that initial bubble, and then we can share it and all that stuff. So the second time, we didn't actually even run ads the second time, just because we had too much stuff going on at the church that we just couldn't. And so then the third time I did it, I ran ads again, a month. But what I also did was we changed the way that we did registration. And we changed the way that we put it on the website. So the way our website works is you can put 2 things right on the homepage, just so that the second they go to your website, that's the first 2 things they see. And we kind of had it buried in our events page, which is like kind of, hard to find if you don't know what you're looking for. And so I was like, well, if this is important to us and it's for the community, then we need to make it as easy as possible. So I put it smack dab right on the homepage. It's still there. It's going to stay there until the school year is over, because the information doesn't change now with only the dates and everything, but we update that as we go. And all of the traffic from like Facebook and Instagram ads pushes them, the link just takes them to the website. and then they click there. And we saw that it worked like really, really well. And I said we changed registration. We were using Eventbrite. Eventbrite is not very good. I'm just gonna say it. I don't need to get into that right now. But we just simplified the way that we did registration. It put more work on myself and our administrator to sort of like condense it all. But we noticed that we got a lot of good feedback from the community, and they're like, "Look, we like this new registration. It's way simpler. It's easier. Like, and when anytime you can make something simpler, people like."
So basically, we made mistakes, and we learned from them, and we worked on the shift, and we realized that once you do this, they will come for other things. And if you can break through your own Christian church ghetto, you've got it made. And that is part of the secret. If it is all about your church and only your church people read it, then people have no need to come to your website. If you're creating events and doing things that are going to serve those people, they will come. And they may not come, they'll initially come to make sure that their child is taken care of. But when all of a sudden that individual has someone in their life who's had a heart attack and they've got no one to go to, the one place that they may start to look is the place that has authentically chosen to care for their kid and provided a service for the community, right? And so these are the small things that you do to create a friendship, and that friendship connects people to Jesus. And it's amazing how those small things take place.
Absolutely.
We only have, I think, about 4 or 5 minutes.
I got one more thing that I want to say, and then we can just open it up for questions. You just can just rapid fire them. One thing that we also noticed when it came to our event and translating that to online traction and vice versa, think about it this way. If you invite somebody to an event, whether it be your friend, family, whatever, and then they come to this awesome event and it's great, but then that's it, and you don't give them something else. You don't tell them when the next event is. You don't, let them know, like, hey, check us out online. You don't give them anything else. It's like going on a first date and then just leaving, right? Like, you're not going to want to go back to that person, right? If somebody goes on a date and then it goes really well and they like you, and then you just never contact them again, they're not going to want to come back. So what we do is every time we have an event, whether it be like for the Easter egg hunt and stuff like that, I'm going to have postcards made for the water fight. So we're going to give them out, and it's going to take them to the website. It's going to create that online traction. So I just encourage you to be doing that as well.
Just like you're building a friendship. Just like you would be building a friendship with someone that you work with, or a friend that you meet through the bowling team that you go to, or whatever, right? So those are just a few things that we are learning. We are not at level 10. We are probably at the same level that you are. And our encouragement for you is just keep trying, do whatever you can. Give us a call, let us know. If the International Worship Center has a Filipino work and they want to do a podcast, tell them to give us a call and they can use our equipment.
Yeah.
If there's any resources that they need, and it is good to reach their community, then we will welcome them with open arms and do everything we can to help so that they can grow their congregation. So anyways, thanks so much. We're just going to close in a word of prayer, but we will, for those people who are here, we'll just have a few questions. I know that there's another session happening in a few minutes, okay? God, we just thank you just for the opportunity to be able to reach people. And sometimes we get so busy and tired in it that we don't realize that it's a privilege. And that, Lord, you have chosen us, Father, to talk to and love and reach people. And Lord, I just pray you'll anoint us and make us successful at us, and just give us strength and wisdom as we go along, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.